Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on this Football Friday before Championship Sunday on the Mike Francesa channel on the Bet Rivers Network on YouTube, as we are down to the Final Four in the NFL. 2 games and then a Super Bowl is all that's left in this season. And interesting games. We have what we expected to have in the AFC, which was another quarterback confrontation. Now that Baltimore has returned to the Eastern Seaboard, licking their wounds after a brutal loss, the Bills will go to Kansas City and see if they can stop history and keep the Chiefs, who have been utterly dominant, from becoming the first NFL team to three-peat in the Super Bowl era. Washington, Philly. Did I expect Washington to be here? I did not. I didn't expect them to beat the Lions. Daniels gets a chance to be the first rookie quarterback to take a team as a starter into the Super Bowl. 5 rookie quarterbacks have played in the NFC or AFC or played in a conference title game. All have lost. Sean King, Roethlisberger, Flacco, Sanchez, Purdy, they've all lost. Now we'll see what will happen. They've played twice. Having, this be the third time in the title game, does that give either one an advantage? I don't think so. They always just say, oh, it's tough to beat a team 3 times. I figured if you beat them the first 2 times, you're probably going to beat them the third time. This is different. They split. Philly won the first game 26-18. Washington made a great comeback and won the second game 36-33. Washington, which is very weak against the run, is not going to stop Barkley. They haven't stopped him yet. He's had 55 carries for almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in the 2 games. He had 146 yards rushing in one game, 150 yards rushing in the other game. He'll probably get 150 yards rushing in this game. But they can beat him because you've seen him get more than 200 yards rushing and Philly be vulnerable. The Rams spotted him a lot of yardage last week and still could have beat him very easily. So him getting yardage doesn't automatically mean victory, because you don't know what kind of passing game you're going to get out of the Eagles. It could be a good one. It could be a bad one. It could be a non-existent one. Daniels threw 9 interceptions this year. 3 of them were against the Eagles. He did make some very big plays in the second game. He is not only a rare rookie, but he is a guy who is so dangerous as the game comes down to to the fourth quarter, to the final minutes, to the final drive, because he doesn't seem to have any problems with any of this. He doesn't ever seem to be anxious. He doesn't ever seem to be out of place. He doesn't ever seem to be uncomfortable. He seems so comfortable. He seems so in his element, so just completely confident in his ability to do the job. He has been brilliant on third down. He has been brilliant on fourth down. He has been brilliant late in the game. He can beat you with his legs. He can beat you with his arm. I mean, you have to spy this guy. We even saw Tampa spying with 2 guys. I mean, what he can deliver is exceptional. It really is. It's utterly exceptional. He's extremely, extremely talented, and he's very dangerous. Okay? Very, very dangerous. The bottom line, This is a competitive game. Do the Eagles deserve to be favored? Yes. They're 6-point favorites. They deserve to be favored. Are they going to run the ball? Yes. Is their defense good? Yes. Is Washington going to move the football? Yes. Is this quarterback going to make plays? Yes. And they know each other extremely, extremely well, which I think aids the underdog when you get division matchups in these parts of the playoffs. I just always felt that way. They know how to play each other. They know each other very well. Now he's only been in the league a couple games, but still, he's already played 2 games with the Eagles. The Eagles aren't going to fool him. They're not going to show him a whole lot that he hasn't seen, even though they have a talented defensive coordinator. On to the second game, which is another one of these mega matchups, just like last week was, and it lived up to that. I finally saw Andrews' comments. You know, he didn't comment after the game. He didn't comment Monday when he cleaned out his locker. He finally commented yesterday, and he talked about how he has been actually sick. That this was a gut punch, the likes of which he can't even comprehend. And how badly he feels. Now, his quarterback ran to his aid, his coach ran to his aid. There's not much they can do for him. This is a very talented, very dependable player who had a nightmare. A nightmare fourth quarter and then finished it up with a drop. Now, was the pass perfect? No, but it was completely catchable. He short on the ball a little bit, yeah, but he still got it there, and he got it above the waist. I mean, you got to catch it. I mean, listen, no one ever doubted that the ball should be caught. Now here comes Buffalo. The better team didn't win last week. Anyone, even the Bills fans, probably would admit that. And I'll tell you this: they did the Chiefs a big favor because I thought that Baltimore would win last week. I knew that Buffalo was dangerous in their building. We all know that, and in the cold weather. I really believe if Baltimore had won last week, they would win this week, and they would win in the Super Bowl 2 weeks from now. I don't think anybody would have stopped them. But they're not here, so it doesn't matter. Now it's Buffalo with its chance, with its brilliant quarterback, with its history against Kansas City, but you are dealing with something that is special. Put into perspective what Kansas City has become. In the last 6 years, now these are staggering numbers. In the last 6 years, Andy Reid is 93-24 as a head coach. In the NFL, 93-24. Included in that number is 15-2 in the playoffs with 3 titles. Those are past legendary numbers. They're immortal numbers. He right now is on an 8-game winning streak. They have played in 7 straight AFC title games. They are looking for a 3rd straight Super Bowl and a 4th Super Bowl in all in this run. They have long ago established themselves as legendary figures, he and Mahomes. If you go to Kansas City to win, you're not only beating Kansas City, you're beating iconic figures in Reid and Mahomes and Hall of Fame figures in Jones and Kelsey, maybe the kicker. Not easy. Very difficult. Kansas City's vulnerability, as obvious as the day is long, they are exceedingly weak at the tackles. They have moved Thuney from guard, where he's a top player, to tackle where he's not a top player, where he's an okay player. They are exceedingly weak at the tackles, something Buffalo, I know, has had to spend the week deciding. I would absolutely line my best guys over these tackles and make Kansas City adjust, whether they have to chip with running backs, whether they have to keep tight ends in, whether they have to go to two tight ends all the time, whatever it is, make them react by pressuring their tackles who are woefully weak. Houston was perfect to do it because they had edge rushers and superb corners. So what did Kansas City do? They moved everything inside and killed them with Kelsey. Their wide receivers did nothing in the game. They did not challenge the prowess of the Houston corners, and they overcame their issues at tackle. Can they do that again? They will game plan to do just that. Buffalo doesn't have Kansas City, doesn't have Houston's prowess. They don't have an Anderson. They have some guys who can rush the quarterback, but they don't have a guy like him. Is Buffalo a great team? No. They have a great quarterback. They have some good players. They have one great player. They got some good players. Cook's a good player. They got some explosive players with wide receiver. I like Shakur. He's very good after the catch, and he's dependable. He's better than advertised. Like Johnson out of the backfield. Dangerous. They have tight ends who can catch the ball. Kincaid's good. Knox is always good in the postseason. Are they great on the offensive line? No. Are they great on the defensive line? No. Do they have players? Yes. Will they be better if Binford's healthy? Yes. Can they go to Kansas City and win? Yes. Will they? There's your question. Kansas City deserves to be favored. They're a slight favorite. Considering who they are and what they have accomplished, being a 2-point favorite shows you that they're vulnerable. You would think, based on history, they'd be a 6 or 7-point favorite. They're a 2-point favorite because of the vulnerabilities they've shown this year, even though it has on very few occasions shown up in wins and losses. So what happens? Well, Philly deserves to be favored. You put a gun to my head, I think Philly wins the game. They're home. They're better on both lines. But taking 6 points in this kid because number one, he's hard to stop. Number two, Washington's been in almost every game all year, and number three, they would be a perfect backdoor cover. As far as the other game, I think Kansas City's going to win. If Baltimore was there right now, if they had caught that pass and then come back and won that game in overtime, I would be picking the Ravens here without any problems. I would be picking the Ravens here. But I think that I don't think Buffalo's as good as the Ravens. Obviously not. Just look at the Pro Bowl considerations. I think it'll be a close game. I have great respect for Josh Allen. Buffalo knows how to play them, and they're good. But I think Kansas City will find a way, just like they always do, and win the game, probably by 3 to 6 points. And it might be on the final play of the game. Who knows? We've been down that road before. Might be last one with the ball. Does Washington have a puncher's chance? Yes. Do I think they'll win? No. But Philly has vulnerabilities. And no reason to think that they won't play a close game. I think they will. I would take the 6 with Washington. I would lay the 2 with Kansas City. As far as coaching goes, let me start with Aaron Glenn. Listen, I would have rather had an experienced hand right now because I have been on the platform of keeping Rodgers and keeping Devontae here and filling in the blanks and going after it. I would have liked to do that with a veteran coach. Aaron Glenn has the right kind of resume and the right kind of experience that a coordinator is supposed to have when he becomes a head coach. Plus, on top of that, he was a good player. So he understands the idea from a playing perspective. He has been a scout. He has learned under the likes of Bill Parcells. He has been around good coaching, and he has paid his dues. In every way, he has paid his dues. Now, does that mean he's going to be successful? Absolutely not. As I've told you many times, there is not a way in the world to decipher whether or not a coordinator is going to be a successful head coach. There's just no way to know because you are asking him to be a specialist and now be a composite leader. And you don't know if a specialist is going to become a composite leader. Rick Majerus used to always say to me, and he was a very bright coach. He said, "You have no idea how much things change when you slide down that bench 2 feet from an assistant to the head coach." Same thing in the NFL. It's a whole different deal. Whole different deal. It's like being Secretary of State and then being president. You have completely different powers and completely different responsibilities. Everything is your responsibility, especially the game. And so many of these guys have trouble coaching the game. Doesn't mean Aaron's not going to be good at it. Doesn't mean he's going to be a good leader. Doesn't mean he's not going to put together a good staff. That's the first thing I want to see. What's the staff look like? That's going to tell me more than anything. What's the staff good like? And if you don't think you can read things from the staff, then you don't know anything about the NFL because you can read a lot from the staff. Now, they were going in the direction of giving Aaron familiarity, and he's driving this ship by giving him a general manager who he was comfortable with and knew. They got such an outcry of criticism for a guy that everyone felt was not a guy you wanted to bring into this town and make a general manager that they have clearly backed off and gone in a different direction. I would be surprised if he's named general manager. I think they have already probably gone in a different direction and are looking at different people. And I know they received a ton of criticism externally and internally, and they heard it too. I know they heard it. So that's why that hasn't happened. That plan went away. So I want to see. I'm not gonna. I'm not as concerned about who. There's 3 or 4 candidates at general manager they can pick and be fine with. I'm more concerned with the staff, short term, than I am the general manager, especially the offensive coordinator. And then what they're going to do, I hope. There have been rumors that Glenn's leaning towards keeping Rodgers. Now, that would make sense from a standpoint of him understanding as a player just how special Rodgers is. A player would understand that much more than someone who wasn't a player. And if they want to try and compete next year, he's the way to go with Adams. So let's see if that turns out to be the case. Um, the Liam Coen situation, we're going to have to put all the pieces together, but here's the bottom line. Coen was very unhappy with the setup, so he was going back to Tampa. On the way to going back to Tampa, Jacksonville decided we will change the setup to try and get Coen. They did, and now Coen jumped back from being a highly paid coordinator, which Tampa was going to make him, to now the head coach. Tampa seems like they feel they've gotten, really screwed in this situation or treated very badly. And Tampa has a habit of feeling like they've been given the short shrift. They've done that in other negotiations through the years. I don't know exactly what happened, but if Jacksonville winds up with Liam Coen, they did well. I could have seen him going back to Tampa and waiting. They moved people to placate him. Now he's the man in Jacksonville. The owner doesn't interfere. That could be a very good situation. And I think he has a quarterback who's a lot better than people think. I have always and still do believe in Trevor Lawrence. Cowboys getting ready to hire Schottenheimer doesn't surprise me. I want to see if Witten's going to be on that staff. I bet he is. Is Witten a quarterback? Is a head coach in the making? Probably, if he's there. Jerry wants a head coach he doesn't have to pay a lot to. Check. Who's already there? Check. Who understands the Cowboys? Check. And allows him to run the whole place? Check. That's all. Jerry's running the show. He's the boss. He's the general manager. He's the owner. He thinks he's the coach, which is why they haven't won in forever. But it's his team. Would Steven run it differently if he was in charge? Yeah, he would, but Jerry's still there. Rumors of Pete Carroll going to the Raiders would be the smartest thing the Raiders could do. Saints hiring Mike McCarthy would be the smartest thing they could do. So if they wind up with Pete Carroll in Vegas and Mike McCarthy in New Orleans, those teams did well. And then Salah's where he should be, a defensive coordinator, because I'm not saying he'll never get a chance to be a head coach again, but he better go back and figure out what he did wrong, because he did a lot wrong. And if he had been made a head coach again, he probably wouldn't even think that. But he should think that, because he was really poor at the job. He's a good defensive coordinator, and he's evidently a good guy. But somebody would have been crazy to make him a head coach. So Ben Johnson, who better be careful because he's got a lot to say. Ben Johnson came off very quirky in all his interviews and everything. And it seems like he wants to burn bridges and make enemies very quickly. Be careful. Win some games first. Aaron Glenn, okay. I'm sure Jet fans are happy with him, but not in love with the process. Cowboy fans won't be happy. Jack fans, I think, will be happy. Baker Mayfield won't be happy. He loves Liam Coen, but hey, it happens. And then McCarthy is going to be the last person the Saints talk to. And then Pete's being mentioned prominently in the Raiders. I hope Pete gets the job. Pete's long ago proved this is not Pete who was with the Jets and was a young guy who was not a good head coach yet. This is Pete Carroll who's proved that he is a really good head coach. Proved it in college, proved it in Seattle. He's a really good head coach, and he's a young 73. And Belichick's in North Carolina making $10 million. So be it. That's where we are. Before I get to your emails, before I do that, let me get to the squares, and then I want to get to one thing. Then I promise I'll get to your emails. Now, let me tell you about the squares, because the squares games are coming to a finish here, because you can place your same game parlays on NFL games to earn the squares. The exclusive squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and some colossal jackpots. So go to the Bet Rivers app for more details and play the square game, which is a lot of fun. So, and doesn't cost you anything, and it's a nice added attraction. So go download the Bet Rivers stuff and play the squares game on these last couple of NFL games and the Super Bowl. Okay, now, before I get to the emails, I want to make this point about St. John's that had this comeback the other night. They're now ranked. Check. They're going to the NCAA tournament. Check. That's been something they've wanted for a long time. They're going back. They're already virtually a lock. They would have to have a complete, insane slump to not go to the NCAA tournament. Now, this is a very big 2 weeks coming up. This Tuesday night at Georgetown. Georgetown's good. They just beat Villanova on the road. They played a great game against St. John's here. They're a vastly improved team for Cooley. They got some really good players. Then they come back next Saturday, and play Providence at the Garden. Then on Tuesday night, play Marquette at the Garden in one of the Big East games of the year. And then Friday night, they go up to Stores to play UConn in what will be a, grudge match. So Georgetown on the road, Providence, Marquette, UConn. That's the next 2 weeks. This 2 weeks will tell you everything you want to know about this team. Now, Smith was out the other night. They made a wild comeback using their press to do it because their offense was just so bad it gave you a headache against Xavier. And they came back from 16 down. St. John's is gritty. They don't quit, and they weigh you down. And their press is relentless, but their offense is dreadful in the half court. Smith's got a shoulder. They brought him back too quick. Now they're going to wait. I don't know if he's going to play in these games over the next 2 weeks or not. He's got some days off till Tuesday. He can even wait past Tuesday. Although Georgetown game, they could use him. They desperately need Smith. If they are going to go where I forecast for them to go in December, which is to play in the Sweet 16 and have a chance to get to the Final 8. Right there, in games 3 and 4 in the NCAA tournament, you play really good teams. You can even catch a really good team on in the second game, but you might or might not. Let's say St. John's is a 5 seed. Okay? They're going to beat the 12. Then they're going to be in a 4-5 game. Tough game, but a game they can win. Then you're in the rarefied air, unless somebody pulled a couple upsets. Now, Smith is their quote-unquote point guard. They don't really have a point guard but he's their closest thing. Richmond has as many assists, but Smith's the point guard. Smith is a 5'11", freakish athlete. 5'11", probably jumps better than anybody in college basketball. He is an insane jumper. But what he brings is some quality and some efficiency to this offense. See, if St. John's is going to turn you over, they're going to be a pass or 3 dribbles and a dunk. That's it. If they can fast break off a turnover or get out on a break where people are going to get back on them. They're going to make sure they get back on them because if you can make them play in the half court, they're not good. They're bad. Now, Smith gives them a playmaker, an athletic player, both ends of the floor, but on offense gives them a playmaker who can beat people off the dribble, but can also take the jump shot. Smith is a 39% three-point shooter. They don't have another guy in the lineup who plays a lot who's more than a 30% three-point shooter. They have terrible three-point. Richmond's a 15%. He's a bricklayer. Can he get to the basket? He can get to the basket on anybody in the country. Can he score from the outside? No. And the bad thing is he can drive on anybody in the country, but he can't make his foul shots. He and Zuby have to do better on the foul line. St. John misses more layups, point-blank layups, than any team in the world. The good thing is they rebound most of them themselves and then maybe make the second one. Smith gives them a guy who can beat a guy off the dribble, can pass the ball, can shoot a three. They desperately need him. See, when I look at a team for the tournament and I say, I want to see a team make a run, I envision them playing somebody like Iowa State or Tennessee or Auburn. And if St. John's plays those teams in the half court are going to take St. John's so far out of their offense, St. John's going to shoot 12%. St. John's has won games this year shooting 1 for 21 from three. Last game, they shot 1 for 13 from three and won the game with a big comeback. They didn't make it back because they were bombing threes. They made it back because they turned the ball over and kept the team from scoring. And a lot of possessions kept Xavier 35 feet from the basket with their defense. And they get in and assault the rim. They assault the paint. They assault the rim. They get offensive rebounds. Lewis, who's their best player, can score in tight on anybody. Zuby, whose footwork has improved dramatically under Pitino, misses more layups than anybody should ever miss. Richmond, like I said, can get to the basket against anybody, anywhere, anytime. The problem is when he gets there, he's going to get fouled and he shoots 50%. And if he takes an outside shot, it's a brick. You pray it goes in. And if it goes in, it's going to hit the front rim, hit the back rim, go up, and then come down somehow inside the cylinder. The guy is a bricklayer. Listen, he knows how to play the game, physical, can pass the ball, can get to the front of the rim on anybody. He just can't make his shots. That's why Smith is imperative against any quality team. If they don't have Smith against Marquette and UConn, I don't think they're going to win. Now, I don't know if McNeely's going to be back for UConn. UConn's not the same team without McNeely, and they haven't had him recently. I'm figuring McNeely comes back at some time soon. I'm not sure on his injury yet. Marquette's really good, you know that. St. John's right now is at the top of the Big East. You know what that accomplishment is in 2 years? Now, listen, with Rapoli's help, Pitino brought in a lot of players. And he brought in Richmond from Seton Hall, and he brought in Smith, and he brought in a whole bunch of players. He's also helped develop these guys. And now, St. John's, for the first time in eons, isn't just playing to make an NCAA tournament or have a decent year. They're playing for prizes, including a Big East championship. See, any one of 3 or 4 teams can win the Big East tournament. That's fine. Winning the Big East regular season, you got to be quality. And St. John's has a chance to do that. And that would be a heck of an accomplishment. And, you know, this year, they've lost 3 games. They lost a Baylor game they should have never lost. They lost to Creighton by 1 point, and they had a shot at the end. And they lost to Georgia down in the Bahamas on a Sunday after they'd already played 3 games down there, and they had a bad game and lost by a handful, like 3 or 4. That's it for the year. That's it. That's all the games they've lost. Tino has done an incredible job here with this team, but this team has a crazy vulnerability. It cannot shoot. They don't have one guy who can fill it up from 3, except possibly Smith. They don't have a go-to guy on offense. And this stuff makes it tough. It really does. They can have a real run this year. And people, you see the Garden starting to get excited now. I think the Marquette game could be close to a sellout. I think the UConn game later this year will be a sellout. The Big East will be exciting. There's real energy in the building. And they're going to March and jump on the bandwagon now because they're going to have a fun run here. And if they make the Sweet 16, they'll be a darling in this town. But a lot of it's going to revolve around what Smith does. And they have to get him healthy and happy and productive. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet this year. We need to see it now. This just in, Pete Carroll has reached a 3-year deal with a 4th-year option to coach the Raiders. Good for Pete, good for the Raiders. That was a smart decision. I told you a long time ago, when they fired Saleh, I wanted them to hire Pete. Right away. I mean, right then. Pete's back in the league. Good for him. I'm happy for him. You know, Pete's never forgiven me for Endog for he felt we were really vocal voices in him getting bounced out of New York. It wasn't us. It was Leon. Leon wasn't happy with him. It had nothing to do with us. But that's just the way it works. But we watched Pete grow into a tremendous coach after stubbing his toe in with the Jets, stubbing his toe with the Pats, but then finding his way with USC and then becoming a big time winner with Seattle. And now he's got another chance. He wanted to coach again desperately, and now he gets another chance. So congratulations to Pete. I would expect McCarthy back in the league with the. I would expect McCarthy back in the league with the Saints. Be very surprised if he's not. Now, emails. Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Let's see what's on your mind. Jim, why do you think that almost all of Belichick's assistants never become successful head coaches? I think some of it's just luck of the draw. I think otherwise it's that he is not picking. He picks more studious guys. While I think Parcells picked guys who got in guys' faces and were more demonstrative and more motivators. And I think as a head coach, you need to be that. So I think he's going for guys who are more X's and O, and Parcells was going for more guys who were just quicker on their feet and more motivators. Coughlin, Sean Payton, guys like that. So that would be, but some of it's just luck of the draw. Matt, what are your thoughts on the Dodgers? Listen, does baseball need a salary cap? Probably, but you know what? Baseball's never getting a salary cap. It's not happening. Player Association would rather shut the game down for the rest of time before they would give you a salary cap. The Dodgers are taking what are enormous revenues and spinning them back into their franchise. They have a right to do it. Other teams can do the same thing. Not everybody, but the big market teams can do the same thing. Robert, my son will be a freshman at Fairfield. What are some things you like about the school? Well, I'm not the guy to ask. I don't go there. So, I didn't go to Fairfield. So, I know that Harrison, who goes there and is studying broadcasting there, and he's a freshman. He's only been there one semester, but he really likes the place. But again, I don't go there, so it's hard for me to say. Jake, what do you think the Colts should do with Anthony Richardson? Should they rebuild? I think what they should do is take his running ability and build the offense from that out. Start by utilizing some things that he does brilliantly, and then work on some things he can do okay. And then you'll expand the passing and how they play it off that. But I would not give up on him as a quarterback yet, because the mobility of the quarterback and the dynamic running of the quarterback is now a part and parcel of this game. It just is. So I think he can be developed off that. Now, he's got to improve his accuracy, and some guys never can. And if his accuracy doesn't get better, he's never going to be a big time quarterback. Doug, do you think Boris is putting these Jays rumors out there to get the Mets back to the table? Listen, this has been my thought for a long time. I don't think the Mets care. I don't. If the Mets had wanted Pete, they would have signed him a long time ago. I don't think they want him. I don't think the general manager wants him. And I believe that if the owner wanted him, he'd be there. And if the wife was in love with him as far as a player, he would be there. He's not there. So they don't want him back. Otherwise, he'd be back. It's not an economic thing. And he's trying to come back because he wants to be here, and he's trying to get the money up. And depending who you listen to, some people think he's an inch from being signed in Toronto, or they're making this up to try to get the Mets back to the table. I got to figure the Mets would have come to the table a long time ago. If the Mets don't have economic issues, so if they want someone, they're going to sign him. I've gotten the feeling they don't want him. Dennis, which superstar do you think will get over the hump in their respective sport quicker, Lamar or Judge? I think listen. They have done everything in the regular season they can do. Most valuable player awards, dynamic statistical performances. They just need to have that special moment in the postseason. It will come. If they get enough opportunities, I have no doubt it will come for both of them. I'd say the biggest thing you have to do is relax and just let your talent flow. It's about being able to. I watched Soto in the regular season at the plate, and I said to myself, he's going to carry the same process into the postseason and be hell on wheels. And he was. And I think Judge feels pressure, and he has allowed that to expand his approach, where he swings at bad pitches, he expands his strike zone, and does things that are outside the norm. Now, dropping a ball is just, hey, listen, that's fluky. I mean, the guy is a very good fielder. He just happened to drop a ball. As far as which one, I'd say it's based on opportunities, nothing more. Lamar came back. Listen, he did have a turnover, a fumble, and an interception after having no turnovers all year. He did have 2 turnovers in that game, but he did come back and drive his team time after time in the second half. It wasn't like he wasn't playing. He was playing well. Bill, it seems like the playoffs and all-pro teams are full of ex-Jets and ex-Giants. What's going on? Well, they're not very good at what they do. There's nothing else you can say. I mean, they've been very poor in their planning and their approach. They have been at the bottom of the sport in running their football teams. And that's why every part of it, their performance on the field, the players they let go, the decision making they make, has all been faulty. They need the right people in place. Case closed. We'll see you later.